Hello, Conversations with Ronnie Keith podcast fam. This is John, aka Big Time, 33.3% of the Short Desk podcast, inviting you to join myself, Dwayne, and Ronnie Keith every Tuesday as we sit around our short desk and discuss all things in news, sports, entertainment, and a little financial advice. Check out episode 178 as it is a reboot of the show and we discuss our vacation week amongst other things. You're listening to Conversations with Ronnie Keith.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining Conversations with Ronnie Keith this week. Of course, I'm your host, Ronnie Keith. I want to take a quick moment to thank you guys so much for your support, your reaching out to me, chastising me for no episode for last week during the Thanksgiving time. But you all also understood that there wouldn't be an episode, but you still was kind of upset because you didn't get an episode. So I really do appreciate all of you reaching out and everything like that. But we are back this week. I want to take the time out to thank you all for all of your support, all of your fan mails that have come through, all of your downloads and listens and everything like that. Just really want to thank you all for supporting Conversations with Ronnie Keith. This week, have another extraordinary and special guest. This one is very special and close and near and dear to my heart. This is a lifelong friend that I am having on with me today who has an extraordinary story of perseverance and how he has been able to overcome any type of speed bumps, obstacles, and becoming and defining himself as the man he is now today. This young man I've known since sixth grade. We've been best friends since sixth grade. That's a long time. From knowing each other through that time to knowing each other now. And just being consistent with each other and supporting each other. And I've never been more proud of an individual than I am of this young man that I'm going to introduce, just because of how he has just overcame obstacles, how he is a successful businessman, how he's continued to help serve and grow in his community. And it's just been, really a blessing and a bright spot to see the growth, with him. Today, I have the honor and privilege of sitting down and having a conversation with, again, my lifelong friend, Kenneth Carter. And I'd call him Kenny, but y'all call him Kenneth Carter. How you doing today, man? How's everything
I'm
going?
doing. It's going good, man. Thank you so much for that introduction. And what you were saying, and I thought about it. We predate wireless internet.
Yes. Yes, we do.
And you know what made me think about that is you helped me tell this lie that Wesley Snipes was my dad.
Yes. Yes. So we used to we had this thing, man, when we were in school, and we had everybody believing that was Kenny's dad, Wesley Snipes. And you know what? People believed it because Wesley Snipes is from Orlando. So, y'all did favor a little bit, back in the day.
Yeah. And there was no Google. You couldn't check it.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Man, but like I said earlier, man, it's an honor. Kenny is a business owner and CEO of Ameriton Freight. And we're going to talk about his business, but we're going to talk about everything that he went through to get to where he is now. And so, Kenny, like I said, I'm very proud of you, man. Like you said, we go back before wireless. We go back to listening to the little radio, putting in the tape, flipping it on the other side, rewinding it. It's funny. I had a real good flashback about 3 weeks ago. I took my wife to go get her hair done, and she goes to actually someone that we know that we went to high school with. Norma Marie does her hair, Norma Marie
Okay.
Hernandez. And so Norma Marie's mother's neighborhood is across the street from the old neighborhood, your old neighborhood.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, so I when I passed by and I was taking her some weeks ago, it just immediately jotted back memories of, having the basketball goal right outside on the street, man, and how
Man.
we would be out there playing like, all day. We had, you lived across the street from one of the most famous and best DJs that ever lived in Orlando, DJ Jimmy Jams. He was the DJ on 102 Jams back in the day, who's unfortunately passed away by now. But um, I was just thinking about all those times, man. We were out there, till the sun was down playing basketball. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
and you know those stories when I didn't want to quit and I get mad at anybody wanted to quit.
right,
It's like, man,
man. Let
it's
me tell you,
dark. We gotta go home.
you did not listen. Kenny he was, and I still believe to this day, because he get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day, y'all. The living, breathing Energizer Bunny. If y'all ever watched those commercials back in the day and how they used to do the Energizer battery commercials with Energizer Bunny, and they say it keeps going, it keeps going. That is how Kenny is. He keeps going and going. I ain't never seen a man take a nap before. You listen, you are always on go at 100%, man. So, um, but so let's go ahead, man, and jump into your life story. We can kind of, fast forward, and we ain't gotta go through all the little specifics, but um, before you got to where you are now, um, you had an interesting story, and it all started for me. Kenny has, and when I say this, I'm not trying to blow smoke up him. He knows me. He knows I'm just gonna be who I am. I'm gonna tell the truth. I don't care how it hurts your feelings. But Kenny's never been, there's always, when you're growing up, is always the one that's bad, or a kid that's, constantly doing bad things and involved with bad things. Kenny was never that kid. Um, I never really saw him do. Man, matter of fact, I don't think I really ever heard him cuss. Maybe when we got to an adult, I heard him once or twice, but I never really even heard him curse when we were kids. And so, you know, um, tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how things were for you as a kid growing up well into your teenage years and young adulthood.
Definitely. My upbringing was supportive. My mom, she raised four kids. I was the third child. She was there as much as she could be, especially during the teenage years. Whenever we needed something, even if it was homework or a senior project, my mom was there. She's sitting there 2 o'clock in the morning, helping us finish it out. So the upbringing was always very supportive. And then having a brother that's really close to me, Corey, which is only 2 years younger, that
Mm-hmm.
was very helpful because we were able to be our best, each other's best friends.
Yeah.
And that helped us out a lot. And like you said, never getting in trouble and never cursing. I always looked at myself as a role model earlier on, for my
Mm-hmm.
brother, despite our age. And I just was talking about it the other day, how my whole childhood and life was always protecting my siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that was that guide. And then getting older, you start to lose focus. And I think that's everybody. Everybody starts to lose focus if they're not really pursuing it too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really never intentional about what I wanted to do. I was just doing things, just the natural.
Yeah.
And that's what led to the getting in trouble. Fast forward a little, is because without direction and without any real goals, you lose track of where you're trying to be.
So let me ask you, did you, before we get into the trouble part, right? Um, you know, that was one thing I always admired too, is that you always had a very close relationship with your siblings, with your two brothers and your sister. Like, you guys were extremely close. And, you were, to me, you always seemed to be the protector of the family. Um, did that become way too much on you as you got older? Did you put too much pressure on yourself?
That's a really good question. I believe I did, and I still do. Just from different situations, being younger and having to protect my younger brother and my other brother, Tim, who's a year older than me, but he has Down syndrome. So he was still at that time younger in my eyes. So it was a lot of protecting them. And I do believe like a lot of the weight on my shoulders were me trying to do that for them and then still continue to try to protect other people. And when I lost that protecting other people, I was never really protecting myself. So now I had nobody to protect and also not ever learning how to protect myself. And I believe that's what happens. And everything from there just kind of blew up in my face.
Okay. So you've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Um, when we were young adults, you started a little business with your brother. And is that when things started to kind of start to roll downhill in a negative way for you?
Yes, that we could put that as the point where it all started. It
Okay.
wasn't getting in trouble, it was partying, drinking, and then the drinking turned to more drinking. And that's when you're doing music, you're in the clubs a lot, or you're trying to make a name for yourself, and you have to live up to this image. So getting into music and trying to be somebody I wasn't led me down that path.
Hmm. So you started making music. Very local, popular group here in Orlando. And you did the group, thing with you, your brother, and a couple of close friends, in and out. But the main core was you, your brother, and I think one other friend that you guys had. And it became a fast life for you. I can say that the first time I saw you drink, it was very jarring for me. And the reason why I say that, not to say, oh my God, you're some Boy Scout, but as I spoke earlier, you just always exemplified this very clean life, worked out. We played football together in high school. Like I said, when we were kids, we played basketball, rode bikes, things like that. So I never ever had this image. I think out of all our friends, you and I were one of the only two that, I never saw pick up a cigarette or black them out, none of those things. So the first time I saw you drink, it was very jarring because I just had never seen that happen, with you. And I never envisioned you ever picking anything up like that. And so when that started to happen for you, was it part of the music industry that you felt like you had to just be in the in crowd, or was it just, a lifestyle habit that you just picked up?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's being in the in crowd, and like I said, when you're in the clubs, you have to have that image. So you're in the VIP, and now you're drinking, and then also with those drinkings, even though you're not drinking in the club, now you're at the house drinking. You're hanging out with the same people. It's not really about where you're at; it's who you're with, and
Hmm.
then that created a habit, and that slow habit of just drinking once a week on a Friday night or a Saturday night easily turns until Saturday night, and then Sunday night, and then Monday night, and then Tuesday afternoon. So you can always find ways to create a lifestyle and a habit if you like, and it takes a lot of effort and energy to steer away from those
Hmm.
habits.
Right. And so you said it started blowing up in your face, right? So what happened with the music thing for you, and how did, after the drinking, it started to blow up in your face?
After music, me and my brother started doing our own independent albums because first I was just producing for him. So
Hmm.
behind the scenes a lot. Being behind the scenes, you don't really have to have an image. I was still me. And then I saw the fame he had and wanted it too. And following my little brother's footsteps, I started to get into the spotlight and start doing music. And it really wasn't my passion per se, music. My passion was being on stage and being in front of people. So then I started hosting clubs and started hosting events. And in that, it's less structure. You don't have to
Hmm.
rehearse, you don't have to practice, you just get up there and you talk. And now with that, there's no structure. You're still in the same environment, without having to put any work in, and then you feel like you're the man. And it's so easy to feel like that when people are praising you and they're looking up to you, and you have all these friends around you. At least it looks like friends,
Mm,
but it's
mm,
not really friends. It's people who are there because of what you're doing or what you have.
mm. So a lot of these people were, for better words, leeching off of what they saw may have been success for you and thought that that would rub off on you.
Yes. And it's my fault. When you if you hang around somebody and you continue, let's say, buy bottles and bring them to the VIP,
Hmm.
you've just set that expectation for them. That's just like we do now. Even in our relationships, we are mad at people for how they're treating us, but we don't realize that we've allowed them to treat us that way. That it didn't start day one.
That's right.
And that was something I had to reflect on. It's like, you know what? These people, they're not the bad people. I created these situations and now I don't like it.
Mm, okay. So, with you moving towards the forefront, coming out of the background from being a producer, and more of a on-stage personality rapper, with the group, with your brother, did that in any way, shape, or form change the dynamics of the relationship you had with your brother?
No, we got closer because we can
Mm,
now both do our own things instead of
okay.
someone living in the other's shadow.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that was easier too because now we can do our separate shows and then bring each other together.
Okay. Gotcha. So, why did you stop with the music?
The music wasn't for me. While drinking and partying was fun, the image that I had wasn't really what I wanted. It was kind of my brother's idea. He wanted to do music, so I was there to support. And after we split up, I realized like this is not that fun. It was more fun
Mm,
doing it with my brother, but it wasn't something I wanted to do long term.
okay. So, did the drinking and the desire to not perform increase in a sense after that? Like once you started realizing, hey, this isn't really for me, did the drinking just start increasing, or did we just start stepping into other things then?
Funny thing, that's a good question. I don't know when it increased. It just
Really?
did. And I think that's the scary part about it.
Wow.
Just like people who drink now, you have that one drink and then 4 hours later you're like, "Oh my god, I had a whole bottle."
Right.
You don't you don't realize it in the
Right.
moment. Except my whole bottle turned for 5 years of drinking.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So, what was next for Kenny after the rap career was over?
After the rap career, I stayed in the entertainment, like I said, hosting. But after the hosting and entertainment, I got back into I would say a regular life,
Hmm.
driving trucks, getting back into driving trucks and living a 40-hour work week life. And I enjoyed that life. The
Mm,
problem was I was so into that old life that the regular life felt boring. And so I needed more. And so instead of getting into the entertainment, I would just start going out to the clubs and partying and drinking without a purpose.
mm, wow. And so there were a lot of long nights, early mornings, where I'm sure you stumbled in and out of clubs, not knowing what the next day was really, and then trying to put it together to go back to your regular job, right?
Yes, I would leave the club and go sleep in my car in the parking lot because I got out so late. I didn't have time to go home and shower. Or I know if I went to sleep, I wouldn't be able to wake up. It's like those things
Mm,
that you don't even realize you're priding yourself on being able to sleep 2 or 3 hours, but that's not healthy.
right, right. So you would essentially show up to these places, to your job and stuff, pretty much hungover, right?
Yes, yes. And
Wow.
then tell my boss, like, hey, I can't drive today. I'm not feeling good.
Okay. Wow. So eventually things started to take an even worse turn from the alcohol. Let's talk about that. Where did it started to move beyond the alcohol and move into more serious abuse?
Yes. The alcohol was definitely the fuel. And I look back at today and I say, you know what? It wasn't me doing anything other than drinking, because drinking led to everything else. Hanging out one day, having some friends around, and a guy said, "Hey man, you should try some coke." And I'm like, "Nope, that's not for me." He was like, "It'll sober you up." And because I was drinking so much and I didn't want to be drunk, but I liked the feeling of drinking, I tried it. And
Wait, hold on a second. I'm sorry. So somebody just came. I mean, it's a friend, of course. Just randomly said, "Hey, they noticed that you're drunk. A lot of the times you're imbibing, and they're telling you, hey, this will sober you up. Try some coke, just straight like that."
straight like that. That was the life I was
Wow,
living.
wow, wow. So you told him no the first time.
Yes, I told him no the first time. And with a little bit of convincing, wasn't much. I was like, okay, I'll try it.
Oh my god. So you tried it for the first time. What was that experience for you then?
It was exhilarating. I really did sober up. And after I felt that feeling, that jolt of energy and that consciousness of coming back, I was like, where do I get more from? And in that moment, how you alluded to me being an entrepreneur, I was like, if I wanted this bad and I just tried it, I could sell this.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So immediately, the first time I tried it, is to say one thought was trying, the second thought was to sell it.
Wow. So obviously you got in touch with the appropriate people to start distributing this. So you started selling coke by itself, or were there other things you were selling?
No, just Coke. And it was just for me to do it. It wasn't for me to profit so much. It was like, if I can sell an 8 ball and make X amount of dollars, I can still do this much, and then I can get enough for another 8 ball. So it really started as an addiction, like from
Damn.
the jump.
Wow. So you were coming out hard with the cocaine use in the very beginning. Like, would you say you started off small, or you just came out trying to hit a home run with it? Pretty big. I mean, that's the only way I can think about it, because you started talking about 8 balls and stuff. I'm like, whoa. So that's what
Yeah.
happened. So, of course, I don't want to get into too many details about that, but was it in the places that you frequent where you had a lot of people that you would sell to?
Yes, downtown Orlando.
Mm.
And it was people who I didn't know anybody who did it. When you're not
Hmm.
in the circle, you're just not in the circle. But I
Hmm.
was confident and brave enough to go out and say, "Hey, you know anybody that needs some coke? I got it." And next thing you know, I got 2,000 phone numbers in my phone 2 years later, and I'm selling 2 ounces a day out of 20s, breaking it down to 20s. And next thing you know, I'm in the club. I, it feels like 24/7, selling to the club owners, selling to the bartenders, selling to the security, and we created this whole new lifestyle for myself.
Were you making more money than you had ever before at that point?
Can I just tell you, I quit my job?
Wow. 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 So, doing that, Kenny, did you, at any point, was there any paranoia with getting caught or anything by undercover cop, or were you just free to your fool, as the old people used to say?
Yeah, I was a fool. I was very oblivious to the law, mainly because I didn't even want to know, which I think is worse. And
Right.
that's why I overeducate myself now.
Hmm.
But just saying, you know what? If I don't know, then I'm good. And then you get so arrogant that you were like, oh, I'll never get caught. Or I'm only selling to my friends. I'm not doing anything wrong. And that's why I started to tell myself. So I started to lie to myself, and lying to myself just made me get bigger and bigger.
So, you know, and I'm gonna come back to that. I got a real quick funny story to tell. I don't even know if you remember this. I wasn't part of it, but I heard about it. It is funny because you said something there. You were oblivious to it and everything with the law, and that's how I know you were really far out there. Because the Kenny I know, he knew the law. There was a story I was told by our friends one day after school. Y'all got stopped. Um, right there off of Lake Under here by that Popeyes, and they said you wasn't saying a word. Like, You had to write when they said you had to write to remain silent. They said you was saying one thing. Everybody else was like panicked, and you wasn't saying a word. And I mean, we talk. When you look back as an adult, you're like, "Oh man, that's a scary situation." But we were laughing about it so much because, and I remember I asked you, said, "Hey, I had the right to remain silent. I wasn't saying anything unless my lawyer was there."
Did that, y'all? I didn't have a lawyer.
Right. But you was looking straight ahead. You wasn't saying a word. So it's amazing to me that how drugs can really put you in another mindset, because of the usage, and then also the fast money, because it was a double it was double trouble, right? You were using, and you were also selling, and you were making so much money that you were able to quit your job and feed your habit at the same time.
Yes.
Um, so there was no fear there for you. There was no fear of police. There was not even doesn't even seem like there was any fear of overdosing. We don't You didn't hear about it back then when you were doing it, but now you hear a lot about fentanyl being, added to these drugs and things like that. So it wasn't really more of a concern back then, but you still have to, the chance of something going wrong when doing these things. So when you started getting knee deep into the drug, and I won't even say the drug selling, but the drug usage, did family and friends, because at this point I hadn't seen you in a while, but the family and friends that were around you, did they notice a change? Did anybody say anything? Like what happened there?
With as far as the friends, you kind of get rid of the friends that don't do it,
Mm,
and it's if you look back, hindsight, it's an embarrassment.
mm-hmm,
You don't because you know for a fact that you're not that person. No one comes out as a drug user. And so when you live this life of the military and not cursing and staying out of trouble, and then you become this drug addict, you're embarrassed.
mm-hmm.
It's but the drugs is just so strong that you don't even care. You're willing to lose your friends to stay
Wow,
high.
wow. So with the drug usage, with the coke, did it go to anything else, or it just stayed at coke for you?
It stayed there. It was a little stint of Molly. That's because Molly was in during that time, more of a
Mm.
party drug, but nothing other than that. I had a reaction to the Molly once, and I stopped it. Just never did it again.
Did you ever do marijuana?
Briefly, but I was never a fan of it. My energy's too high for me to get something that's going to slow me down. I need to-
So the reason why I ask that is because usually with people that you hear that are on coke and things, it's a graduation thing. It's a gradual transition to that. But it seems like yours went from alcohol, which a lot of people drink. It's a common occurrence. They sell it in restaurants and things like that. So people at times have drinks and things like that. But it just seemed like it was just I overindulged, I imbibed in alcohol, and boom, now I'm on coke. It wasn't alcohol. Let's do a little weed. Then I became a real big weed head, lace it every now and then boom, full on coke. It just went from alcohol to coke, right?
Yeah, full on. I started
Wow.
smoking. I started smoking when I was doing coke, but I was only smoking because somebody had it. I wouldn't buy it. So yeah,
Mm,
I skipped straight over everything else. I never even sold weed before. So I jumped into the hard things. I went to sell it and do it.
wow. Wow.
And before that
So
day, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Before that day, I've never even seen coke. Didn't even know what it looked like.
Wow. Yeah. So again, and I just want to hammer this home, especially for people that are listening. An addict doesn't have a face or a personality. And what I mean by that, guys, is that a lot of times we'll see people, we judge. It's like, oh, that person's, they're on something, they're on this. To know my friend that I speak with right now is to know that he was full of natural energy. Never at any time would you sit there and look at him and go, oh man, he's on something. Nothing. And you never saw him do anything. Hell, I don't even know if he even drank energy drinks. You know what I mean? It's just he was that, it still is, it was a natural high that Kenny has. And so he does not look like the poster child for this. However, I want to share a story, and I've shared this before with Kenny. Um, Many years ago, I don't even think me and my wife were married at that point, but we went to UCF has a little Christmas thing that they do where they have the little ice skating rink, they have the lights out, they have a little festival on their campus. And we took our son. He had to be, maybe about 5, 6 years old. And I went out there with a friend of mine at the time that knows Kenny as well. And as we were leaving, going back to our car, Kenny and a entourage of people were coming. At that point, I had not seen Kenny in some years. It had been some years, and for a brief moment, we stopped, of course, and talked because we hadn't seen each other in God knows how long, and there was something off. And I could not. The first thing that came in my mind when I saw you, I said, "Man, I hope he's not on drugs." And then I kind of snapped out of it, and I said, "No, Kenny, he's not gonna do anything like that. That's not him." But you look different. You were moving different. You were very skittish. Like you just was not yourself. It wasn't the natural energy and the natural bouncing and off the walls that you had. It was a totally different energy. And I felt it as soon as I came upon you. But I couldn't, like I said, the first thing came to my mind was that. But I was like, no, there's no way in hell. That was just me. And so I was talking to you, but all these things were going on in my head. And so when we left, I turned to my friend and I said, "Did something seem off with Kenny, or is it me?" And he was like, I didn't really notice anything." And I was like, "Nah, I notice things with people, especially with people that I have a connection with." And you're talking about a connection at this point now in life that goes back 30 years, and so I knew that there was something there that wasn't there from the man and the teenager and the kid that I knew growing up, that I was close with and was with damn near every day. So I was just kind of out of it. I was out of it. Like the ride home, I was out of it. My wife was asking me what was going on, and I was still trying to process everything because I couldn't figure out what it was. And so I say that to kind of go into the next phase of your story. Um, you continued on selling, but there was something that happened that caused you to stop selling. Can you tell everyone what happened next for you?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say thank you for being vulnerable and telling me that story. And it hurts every time I hear it. And
Yeah,
that's goes back to what I was saying. Is like you hurt so many people that you don't even realize
yeah,
your friends and your family. And to answer your question about how my family reacted to it, they knew it. My sister was telling my mom about it, and my mom didn't want to believe it.
hmm
Your mom doesn't want to hear
of
that her
course.
child's on drugs. But overall, very supportive. My mom she would come wake me up at what I thought was early morning, but it would be 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go to the DMV. You got to get your license. You got to go start driving again. Because I
Mm-hmm.
let my license get suspended. I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
care anymore. I just lived my life how I wanted to. Uh, but
Wow.
to get back to where we were back into the point, I stopped selling. I got a job. with the help of my mom telling me get off my feet, get on my feet, and get back at it. Start
Hmm.
selling. So I stopped. I'm sorry. Started to work for a big company. I stopped selling, and I kept getting calls. And I kept telling the guys, no, 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 I'm not doing that anymore. And then I said, you know what? Finally, I'll do it. I'll make a couple $100s. I went. I made the sale,
Ooh.
and yeah. And when I made that sale, it was a little awkward, but everything was smooth. I left. He called me about 2 months later and started asking for the same thing. I gave him the same answer. No, no, no. Ultimately, I did it again. I said yes. I met him, and when I met him, he kept changing locations on me, so I knew something was awkward.
Hmm.
And I pull up, and my friend wasn't there, and I got a text say, "Hey, I broke my ankle." Sends me a picture of his foot in the cast, or at least I thought it was his foot. He's like, "But the guy that was with me last time, he's gonna get it for me." Turns out that was an undercover cop.
Oh, your friend or the was your friend an undercover cop too?
I still to this day do not know.
Wow.
I Yeah, I do not know. I've been to his house. He's been to my house. Met each other's kids. Hung out. Everything. And I still don't know to this day if he was undercover cop or if he was an informant.
So he's disappeared. Like you don't know where he is or now.
I've seen him downtown before. After
Uh-huh.
I got out, I've seen him. So undercover cop gets
Wow.
arrested me. There's about 20 cops with ski masks on surrounding the car. I hopped in his car. So they surrounded his car. I had picked my girlfriend up from work. She's in the other car. And now there's guns pointed at all of us. And I'm like, oh my God, I just put my girl into this situation.
Oh.
And so I wasn't even worried about me. I was worried about her. Like, this is messed up. End up doing it. They arrested me and they was like, we're going to put you in the car fast so you can help us later. And I'm like, what? Help us later? Well, we
Yeah.
heard you're a kingpin. I said, well, that's far from the truth, but okay. So I get arrested. My sister's a bail bondsman. I get out the same day. And I go back, and the next week, I started selling Coke again.
No.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, backing up a little bit. When you stopped selling, were you still using?
Yes, I was using very little. I mean,
Mm.
it wasn't even enough. It was $10, $20 worth a week. It's like I couldn't even break the habit. That's the problem. It's like, oh, I'll just do it on the weekends. But the weekends is how the drinking started. So
Wow.
for me, either for my personality, either you have to stop it all the way or go all the way in.
You're an extremist.
Yes.
Okay. So you got caught. How long did you go in for the first time?
Less than 24 hours.
Oh wow. So you got out, sister, Bill's Bunsman got you out, and you went back to selling the next week?
Yep.
Why? What happened? Did you lose your job or you just was it a high that you just wanted to experience again? What caused you to go back out and say, okay, I got caught undercover, I'm going back again?
It was feeling invincible. It was like I got
Mm,
caught, but it was a slap on the wrist, and I wasn't in touch with reality. One of the reasons is if you're getting bonded out within the same day on such a big charge, you're like, oh, it's all right, I'm good. Not realizing like you have to face yourself soon.
mhm,
And I was on bond for a year and a half. So during that year and a half, I was still dabbling into selling and doing because my sister used to yell at me like, you got to go see the lawyer, and I'm like, I'll do it later. Time
mhm.
passed by, and now we got a court date.
Wow. So you weren't paranoid about possibly running into another undercover cop and none of those things.
No.
Wow. Okay. So wow.
That's all you
So
can say. Wow, okay.
yeah, it's but again, I think what's important to hammer home is at this time it doesn't seem like you were working with all your faculties because of the usage. You know what I mean? Um, Sometimes that could kind of blur our judgment at times of what we're doing with whenever we, get a little inebriated. But again, you are an extremist, so you're either all the way in or all the way out, as you said. So it was time to meet the lawyer. What happened next?
I met the lawyer. He told me I'm going to prison. I'm facing 90 years, no matter
90
what.
years?
Yeah, 90 years. So the first time when I met that guy, I got a trafficking and selling delivery charge. The trafficking is 30 years because it was an ounce, and delivery was 15 years. And then I did it again because I didn't get caught the first time. They didn't arrest me. So the second time they was able to build a case because they was like, okay, it wasn't a fluke. He did it to us the second time, but I'm still accountable for those first charges. So they did the 45 plus 45.
Whoa. So was there a trial or did you offer a plea? What happened next with that?
Yeah, so I ended up not going with the lawyer because I didn't like his answer. It was like, you're going to prison no matter what. I said, what's the point of having you if I got to go to prison?
Right.
Feeling invincible again. It's a mandatory sentence though, and so I just ended up taking a public defender, and I was going to go to trial, and the judge was like, I highly suggest you not go to trial because you're facing 90 years. You're going to get at least half of that. I
Whoa.
would suggest you get a plea deal. And so the public defender said, here's your plea deal. We could do a plea deal for 3 years. And
Mm,
I said, well, I don't want to do anything. She goes, well, you have to do either plea deal or go to trial. If you go to trial, you're going to prison for a lot longer.
mhm.
And I said, well, what should I do? And this lady turned to me and said, it's up to you. It's your life. And I said, oh my God.
Wow.
But
Wow.
ultimately, I mean, you you do something wrong and you turn to somebody else to help you.
Hmm.
You should have helped yourself a long time before that.
Right.
That's what I got from that. And I signed the plea deal. And I signed a plea deal for 3 years. They gave me a month to get my affairs in order. And I just went back partying again. Still,
Oh no.
yeah,
Were
went back
you go
partying,
back to
hanging out.
selling too?
Yep, selling a little bit here and there. Never stopped. I was drinking and did coke the night before I left.
Oh my God. So did they know you were doing coke or they just thought you just were selling?
They thought I was just selling, even though I mentioned it. There wasn't enough. It doesn't matter when you sell that amount, 28 grams,
Hmm.
twice. They're like,
Hmm.
you're not just using, you're selling.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So the night before you were zooted, you know what I mean?
Yep,
And you went in. Is that when reality hit?
not yet.
Oh boy.
On my way in, I'm talking to my girlfriend on the phone. I'm like, when I get out, I'm gonna get the new PS4, the new Madden, get me an ounce of weed. I'm gonna roll up all these blunts, get 2 bottles. I want some Jameson. We're gonna get messed up, like like it didn't phase me. And then about a month in, I looked in the mirror and I just had this feeling of embarrassment. And now the embarrassment was of myself to myself
Hmm.
because you don't have anybody else. Nobody in there is looking at you anymore. You just it's all about you. And that was the game changer. That reflection said, "Dang, Kenny, you look embarrassing. You look helpless." And in that moment, I said, "I got to be a better person." And I looked around, found out they had a library, and I went to the book. And the first book I got was a self-help book, and I read that book in one day. And it
Hmm.
was saying like, outline your strengths and your weaknesses. And boy, on that piece of paper, those strengths came flowing out. I'm this. I'm cool. I'm
Hmm.
everything.
Hmm.
But then I got to the weakness and stopped. I didn't have one weakness.
Mm.
And I was like, this can't be right. I gotta have a weakness. And it took weeks for me to put one weakness on the paper. And the second I put that weakness, I started crying
Wow.
because reality is here now.
Can I say something, Kenny, to you about that?
Yes.
Um, I want to commend you because you, a lot of people would have done what you did, right? And hey, I've got no weakness and just threw the paper away. But you never stopped. You went back to it. It took you a couple of weeks, but you were able to be consistent and persevere and say, hey, I'm still going to go back to this because there's got to be something, even though I don't think I am. And you found something, and it broke you in a sense, but you did not retreat. You did not give up on going back to it, and that's commendable because a lot of people would just say, I don't have a weakness, especially in the situation that you're in and what you just got out of. Boom, I'm strong, whatever, I'm done with this. But you went back to it, and I want to commend you on that because that seems like that was the first step for you.
I really appreciate that. That got me emotional hearing that because I never heard that before. So I really
Yeah,
appreciate it. I never looked at it like that.
yeah, man. That's that's commendable. So you were there. You did you. So you went to prison. You didn't go to jail.
Yes, I went to Florida State Prison.
Wow. Was it was the environment scary for you? Was there any distractions for you as you started on your way of building yourself back?
Yeah, I was afraid every day because I know that I wasn't in my mind. I wasn't a real criminal, and I know there's some real criminals in there. The people that who don't care about anybody and they'll take a
Hmm.
life in a second. And especially when you're dealing with people who don't have anything to lose, literally, they have life sentences. You have to really know how to move, and that was
Hmm.
that was scary. And as far as distractions, the whole environment is a distraction.
Hmm.
From the CEOs to the inmates, and personally, the inmates are worse. I mean, I'm sorry, the CEOs are worse than the inmates when it comes to
Hmm.
distractions and growth.
Hmm.
I can recall a time going to work. They put me in the kitchen to work, and I had a book walking to work, and the officer stopped me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to work." He says, "What's in your hand?" I was like, "It's a book." He's like, "No, it's not. Go back and take it back." I said, "Sir, I have a break. When on my break I read." He said, "You won't be reading today." I said, "So you're gonna make me go take my book back to my room? There's people out here walking around with shanks and knives,
Right.
but you checking me for a book." He was like, "Oh well, take it back." And I took it back and I brought it. I hid it in my socks, and I
Hmm.
felt so weird that I had to sneak a book.
Wow.
And I said, "Well, I'm trying to better myself, and I want to build a business." And he said, "You could do that when you get out."
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's how he stays employed because his job is to keep you in.
I'll tell you a secret though. Everybody who's a CEO, they're in
Hmm.
prison.
Yeah, there you go.
They go there every single day. I say, "You know what? You're gonna be here when I leave."
Hmm. There you go. There you go, Kenny. You're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head with that one. So, um, man, let me ask you this. And I don't want to make this the whole story, but you went in, like you said, the night before you partied. You were partying the whole month before you went in after you got sentenced and everything. Um, did you go through any withdrawal periods?
No, I didn't have any
Really?
withdrawals. I was too focused. First of all, I believe like I was lost. I didn't really know I was there. Like I knew physically I was there in prison, but it didn't feel like it. It was so new, and anything and everything that you ever thought of is not it. It's just a whole different experience.
Wow. Okay. So you got in and you just started focusing on yourself. Were there any setbacks that you had while you were there that may have taken you away from, the path that you wanted to get on?
No, sir, no setbacks. And if it was, I didn't see them because now I put my mind to get something done. I got to get something done. I was so deep into this learning and becoming better that when it was time to get out, I wasn't ready to get out because I'm like, no, no, I haven't perfected myself yet, and I have
Hmm.
actually had a feeling like I need more time. That's how engulfed I was into growth.
Okay. Did you feel at any time while you were in there that, you didn't have any support, or did you feel supported?
Ultra supported,
Okay.
from my mom to my sister, my brothers, my cousins, my girlfriend, everybody. I got a letter every single day, literally every single day, and you don't hear that much.
Right.
And that's really what kept me going. That was my fuel. Because when you're there and you're by yourself and you have to work on yourself and see everybody who's being negative around you, it's a breath of fresh air to get a letter from somebody on the outside saying, "Hey, I love you and I'm here for you."
Yeah. Yeah. It My world was turned upside down when I found out you were there, because I had went back. I had got married, and I couldn't find you. Didn't know where you were at that time. And after I got married, I was like, okay, how do I find him? And then all of a sudden, your brother, I saw him, posting a lot, and so I reached out to him. I said, Where is he? I said, I looked high and low, and I can't. No one is saying where he is, nothing. And he told me where you were.
Yeah, I didn't have a social media either that whole 5 years.
Right,
So there, if you wanted to find me, you have to find me downtown drunk somewhere in a club. Embarrassing
right.
as that sounds.
Man, my heart dropped because I didn't know. You know what I mean? And until you and I talked, I didn't know. I didn't ask. I didn't even want to know why you were
Yeah.
there. I just was in shock that you were there. But essentially going to prison, it's like you don't want to say this, but it basically saved your life.
It did. That is the best thing that happened to me.
Mhm.
It's that rat race. I was tired of running. I didn't even want to be out. I didn't want to go to the clubs. I didn't want to sell drugs. I was just ready to stop. But the habit was so ingrained in my brain, and the
Mhm.
wiring told me this is what you got to do. And I never even tried to get out of it.
Wow, wow. So you started working on yourself while you were in prison. Did you join any groups or anything while you were there, or this was more of a self-focused thing for you, Kenny?
Oh, it was everything. I joined groups, anger management, anything I could take that they offered, I did it. And I did it multiple times. And I
Wow.
read. I read every day, and I went to every group I could. I even helped facilitate some of the groups. I was that person that you would say, "Oh, how did you get in here?"
Right.
which I got.
I'm sure you got that all the time.
This guy who's pretty much well spoken,
Right.
uh,
Ultra
I
positive.
ultra positive, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, what'd you do? I got into almost one fight with somebody, and that's because I stopped him from stealing some of the food.
See, you know what I mean. So you know what I'm saying. Like it's the tale of two stories here. When we sit here, because I started off the show telling you about who Kenneth is, and then to hear the story of what at that point in time in his life he became. It just it's like talking to another person. You know what I mean? But you didn't let that destroy you. You could have easily just withered away. You could have got involved in more things while you were in prison. Because a lot of times when people go to prison, it the redemption stories sometimes happen, but it doesn't. A lot of times, especially when you're knee deep in things like you were. So this is amazing that you were able to just really turn it around and be the person that you truly are at your core. Such a great, gracious, helpful, loving, smart person and citizen. You know what I mean? Um, so did you do your full 3 years, or did you get off a little early, or?
Yeah, so so I got sentenced to 3 years, and they
Mhm,
told me with good behavior I'd get out in 6 months earlier, so I only have to do 2.5 years.
mhm.
And I remember telling my classification officer, like, "Go ahead and mark that down. That's when I'm leaving." He's like,
Yeah.
he's like, "No, it's not guaranteed." I said, "No, I'm telling you, it's guaranteed 100%. I will never lose a day. I will never get in trouble." And that's what happened. And other than one situation where being nice again, I'm at work release, and
Mhm,
I give a civilian, but they work for the prison system, my Wi-Fi password.
mhm,
She's like, "Oh, I need the Wi-Fi." I had a brand new iPhone, which is one of
mhm,
the few people who had a brand new iPhone that my girl got me, and I'm in
mhm.
Lake City. And she asked for the password. I gave it to her. The next day, they come and say, "Pack your stuff up. You're going back to prison."
Whoa.
Just like that. I said, "What? What did I do?" "Oh, you're fraternizing with the staff." I was like, "I did not talk to anybody. I'm not fraternizing." They said, "You gave your Wi-Fi password. That's fraternizing." Long story short, I get sent to Columbia, which is one of the roughest prisons. And as I'm there, they're rushing somebody in that just got stabbed. And I'm like, "Oh, this is not
What?
for me." Yeah, I was like, "This is
Wow.
not for me." I see blood on the ground. I was like, "Oh my god, this is the worst Wi-Fi decision I've ever made."
Oh,
Eh,
wow. So
Yeah,
how long did you have to do for that?
I stayed there for 10 months. They told me
Oh my God.
I never graduated high school, and they held me there to do my GED. And I was like, "No, I graduated high school." And they was like, "No, you got to do it." So they made me take the classes to go get my GED, even though I had my diploma.
What?
Yes. And there's nothing you could do about it. And then I was taking medication in work release, and they said, well, the medication that they gave you
Mhm.
didn't we didn't administer it, we didn't log it, we didn't see you take it. So now you need to stay for 6 months and do your whole cycle all over again.
What?
So they held me there before I can go to work release, trying to do my diploma and I'm sorry, my GED and my medication.
So is that was that included in the 2.5 years, or that was tacked on?
It was included in the 2.5 years, but the thing is, I was already in work release, so I'm already wearing regular clothes. I have a cell phone, I have a
Mhm.
job, and then they throw you back into prison, which is the worst feeling. You rather just stay in there than to go out and get back in.
So, okay, when you're on work release, for people that don't know, you were living in a halfway home, or were you still kind of in and out of jail? Like, how does that work? The work
Yeah, so the
release.
halfway house in prison, once you have less than, I believe, 14 months, you can go to work release.
Hmm.
But there was a program, and I had more than 14 months, but because of my excellent behavior, they allowed me to go to work release, but I couldn't get a job, but I can work on the compound. So I wasn't able to leave, and I still had to wear my prison uniform, but I was able to have a cell phone.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. So they wouldn't send you back to where you were, state Florida prison. They sent you to Columbia,
They sent me to Columbia. Yeah. I was in Orlando first, then they sent me to Columbia.
South Carolina.
No, I'm sorry. It's all Florida. So
Oh, Columbia, Florida. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Columbia prison. Yeah. I don't know the
Oh,
exact
okay.
name. It's
Okay.
I think it's in Columbia, Florida.
Okay.
Sent me there, and then after X amount of time, I got into a work camp cutting grass and trees on the side of the road, which I
Hmm.
hated. And
Hmm.
then I finally got sent to a work release in Orlando. And that's because my old employer wrote a letter to the prison and told them that she needed me to work.
Wow.
Yeah. So I
Wow.
was built had great relationships before that happened.
Of
And I think
course.
that's really important to make sure that you always keep good relationships with people because you never know where you're gonna end up and who can help you.
That's right. That's right. And your character, right? Yeah, you had a bad turn, but the person that they knew wasn't that person, and they trust you, believed in you, and everything. And so, along with you keeping that good relationship with them, that worked in your favor.
Yes.
So you got out finally. Um, what happened next?
I got out, started driving trucks for the lady who uh, allowed me to transfer there. And within 1 month, I started my business that I was working on for those 2 years while I was in there. And that was one of the most exciting times for me because it's something I set my mind to, and I wasn't even able to do it yet. And so when
Hmm.
I got out and I was able to do it, I did it. And I think that's something that people need to really think about. Is like you have the opportunity to do things that you're not doing. But what if you
Mm.
didn't have the opportunity to do it? Would you dream different? Would you
Wow.
work harder at it? Because that's what I did. I worked hard at it because I couldn't do it, and I know I had that time to get it. So I think that setting goals, I think we need to reverse engineer our goals
Hmm.
and really look at it as I want to do this, but I can't do it yet. But I'm going to do all the preliminary work now,
Mm.
and then set a date to when you're going to start.
Wow, that's words to live by, man. How would you kind of told people that they need to reverse engineer, but how do you encourage someone that has that opposite mindset?
First, I
Because it's
would
hard.
say it is. It's definitely hard. I would first say that you need to really identify your rock bottom. Your rock bottom is not prison. That's my story. Your rock bottom is not drugs. That's somebody else's story. The rock bottom is whatever you've been through and however you felt at your lowest. And you take that and you write that down and you embody that pain and that feeling. And from there, you can become motivated because you're like, I never want to go there again. And once you start to feel that, you start to set goals to make sure that you're never there again. And the goals that you're setting are so far from your rock bottom that you eventually won't even see that bottom anymore.
Mm. Do you once you set the goals? Let me ask you this, and this applies to you as well. Do you keep a constant reminder of when you were in rock bottom, or do you move past that?
That's a good question. For so long, I never moved past it. And I finally got somebody to tell me, like, you can only be pushed by your past so long. You need to get pulled by your vision.
Mm. Wow.
And after 2 years, that I stopped having that be the story in my mind. And now the story is my future and my vision. And
Mm.
so I think that you really have to look at it and keep it in the rearview mirror, but just be mindful that the rearview mirror is way smaller than the windshield. It's only for a glance.
Wow.
So
Wow.
glance at it, but keep looking forward.
That's amazing, Kenny. Amazing. Amazing. When you got out and you started on this new path, um, working for the woman that you previously did, at that point, did you want to start just going into business for yourself, or how did you make that transition?
The transition was pretty easy because I was really upfront with her. I said, "Hey, I'll take this job from you for you, and I'll come work with you only if you allow me to work on my business and to know that I'm only going to be here 1 year and I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to leave." And that's a very bold statement if you're in prison and telling the person who got you here to say, "I'll only work for you if you allow me to do my own future."
Right.
And that's what I did. And we really have to do that. We're so afraid of our own goals that we're afraid to tell people about it. But once
Mhm.
you tell the world, "This is what I'm doing," you have no choice but to do it.
Mm.
And
Wow.
so I was working on my business. I would work from 8 to 4:30, get home. I work in the business to 8 o'clock at night. I would get up and go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning, go to work, and come back 8 o'clock at night. It's just really sacrificing so much time to get what I wanted.
Hmm. Wow. So now that you are, this businessman, this owner, this entrepreneur, what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated to keep what you have and to continue to grow it? And the reason why I asked that, Kenny, because it didn't stop here with you owning your business. You've, like I said before, you've dived into your community. You're part of all these different functions. I mean, hell, you've become a oh God, what is it called? Um, what's the program with the speaking? Man, we did it
Uh,
at my job too. I forgot the name of it.
Toastmasters.
Toastmasters. Yes. You become, a Toastmasters group. What keeps you motivated to keep striving and keep going? And after telling us what keeps you motivated, a word of advice for those that are having a struggle with keeping motivated.
What keeps me motivated is the vision. It's creating goals that are not too far in the future, and it's also creating goals that are so far in the future that it sounds outrageous. So, like, my small goal is to support the community. Is to get kids that are been in that's either on their way to going to prison or jail, or who's been there, and help them see that what I did was not the right thing to do. And if I keep my business going and if I can keep myself positive, then I'm always that image that they can see. But if I stop doing that, then everything I told them is not a fact anymore.
Wow. Okay.
That's
Love
the
that.
first. And the second goal is the big, what they call the big, hairy, audacious goal.
Hmm.
My big goal that keeps me going is to own ocean vessels, to be the number one U.S. headquarter ocean vessel company,
Wow.
which is very huge. So you
Wow.
got to
That
have those
is.
goals that takes. There's, I think it was Steve Jobs that said, you got to have goals big enough that everybody else's dreams fit inside it.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That is
And that's what
amazing.
keeps me motivated. And so, word of advice: create something bigger than yourself, and don't put money as any part of building this dream. We are stopped by our thoughts when we say, "Oh, it takes this much money. Let me do this." You got to stop limiting your thoughts. Stop limiting your dreams by money, and just start going after it, because you'll realize that your dreams, no matter how big they are, doesn't take money to start.
Mhm. Wow. I needed to hear that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Um, Kenny, I appreciate you. I know we kind of went over your time. I didn't want to take too much of your time. Anything else you would like to talk or promote before? I'll let you get out of here.
Well, first I want to say to never let a setback be a reason to sit down. When you have a setback, that's when you stand taller.
Mm.
And as far as promoting, I'll just tell you a little brief information about my company. If anybody is ever interested or looking to do any type of supply chain, so what I do is supply chain consultant. Well, we help shippers optimize their networks, we reduce transportation costs, and we also work with carriers, brokers, manufacturers. So if anyone knows anybody who's even struggling in their business or even struggling mentally, I would love to speak with them. And I'm sure that you will have the information that they can reach me at, because I really want to
Absolutely.
help people, even if it's not business, even if it's just talking through some problems or some pains that they had or trying to overcome some adversity.
Wow. When's the TED Talk, man? I mean, we need to get you and with the TED Talk, people, man, because you have an amazing story that's not focused so much on the negative; it's focused on the person that you've become and that you're becoming. Because we're still transitioning, and the one thing that I'm so happy. It sounds like to me, Kenny, and I could be wrong. You know, we go back to what I said earlier. The pressure that you put on yourself, it seems like now you've released that.
Yes, I released it up to a certain point. I think you still have to have a little bit of pressure on you so you don't get
Hmm.
too relaxed or complacent. But you definitely gotta stop and smell the roses, which I've been trying my best to do. It's like when you wash dishes, all you're doing is washing dishes. When you're reading a book, that's all you're doing is reading a book. So practicing that focus and meditation. I love meditation. I'm the cold plunges I do, the cold
Yes.
showers, all the
Yes.
craziest things I do. You just do whatever makes you comfortable, no matter how crazy people think it is, and continuously learning. And I'm pushing myself in other ways. I'm pushing myself with my health, and I'm pushing myself with my mindset and reading those things that I can control.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. That's very important that you do take the time out to enjoy life and put your feet up. Um, it's okay to go hard, but it's also okay to enjoy the hard work. And I'm glad that you're doing that. I'm seeing that you're doing that. I'm very proud of you for doing that. Listen, I just started doing that myself in the past 2 years. I was a workaholic, and now I'm learning that that work is there, that grind is there, my dreams are there, but it's also okay to revel in the accomplishments that I've made thus far, and then to enjoy the bright other side of the hard work that I'm putting in. And I'm glad that you're doing that. It has been a pleasure, Kenny. I want to encourage you guys. He talked about his business, where you can find him. You can go on to AmeritonFreight.com. That's AmeritonFreight.com, and you'll go onto that website. It has everything what they do, route optimization, just everything. And you can always reach out. As Kenny said, if you have any questions or concerns with your business, Kenny is not only a forward-thinking mind but a businessman, and he's always been this since I've known him since he's 12 years old, and he's always been about helping people, and
I'm
that's
back
what
to my
he's
original self.
been. You know what, Kenny? I don't think you ever did lose yourself. You've always been that. You even in the struggles that you had and what we talked about a little bit here today, in your mind, you were still trying to help someone. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were helping yourself, but you still were trying to help yourself. Now, what you were helping them with, it may not have been for the good, but you were still trying to help someone. You know what I
Fair
mean?
enough.
So,
Yes.
Kenny, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really want us to do this again because there's more story to be told about you and who you are. We only had an hour to do this, but um, I thank you so much, sir, for joining me today.
I really appreciate you for giving me this opportunity, giving me this space, and giving me this floor to share my story, and also encourage and motivate others to get past that hardship that they have, because we got a long life to live and we need to live it. So I really appreciate you for allowing me to talk to your fans and your followers, and it's been a pleasure.
I appreciate that. This has been Conversations with Ronnie Keith.